Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode. This is your host, Matthew Loughran, and today we have a special guest. We have Inthran Jeyaratnam, a senior HR manager from TPD, an international workforce and HR solutions firm. Inthran, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on a call here and in this interview. Thanks for taking the time. So, Inthran, just a quick question: can you give us a little bit of information about TPD and what types of businesses or customers that you guys help out?
Yeah. So TPD is a full-service HR company. So everything from permanent recruiting to temporary staffing, and the division that I work in, which is HR consulting. Most of our clients are, I would say, small to medium-sized businesses. So anywhere from 100 to 250 employees that either don't have an HR function or have a very limited HR function. We also do help some larger organizations that have an HR team in place, but maybe they just need extra bandwidth or specific expertise in a certain area of HR.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like you guys help quite a diverse group of organizations then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure.
Great. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? How did you end up getting into HR?
Good question. So as many young graduates do, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Took a general business diploma. It gave me a taste of everything from marketing to accounting, finance, and HR. Decided to specify in an HR degree from there. But what I think what really kept me in the HR field and in the job is two things. So the feeling that you get out of making an impact in a person's life, as well as making a significant impact in a business. So I can, if I think back to a couple of scenarios that I've had, I had a client once that had to do a layoff of a couple employees. And, it's a scary thing going back into the job market after a while. These employees needed to update their resumes and, get some practice doing mock interviews, that sort of thing. So I helped them out with both. Both of them got new positions within a week. And the next day, one of them came back to my office with a box of chocolate in tears, just, thanking me for taking the time to actually help them get new employment. So for me, that was, one of those moments where it's like, okay, this job is really it's worth it, and I love making that kind of impact in someone's life.
Yeah, wow. When I really think of HR, honestly, that's not the number one thing I probably think of, right? In regards to you making a significant impact into people's lives. Typically, and maybe most small business owners might look at HR sometimes as just as a kind of benefits and administration help per se. But it sounds like there's quite a bit, additional layers to this field that I'm hoping to get into here as well. I have some examples from you. It's great. That's really interesting. But can you tell me as well, with the type of clients that you deal with, it sounds like the majority you said with small and medium-sized businesses. Is there a common obstacle that kind of, that they typically have to overcome, and kind of why they engage with HR support?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say the most common obstacle that organizations that we help deal with is just a lack of HR infrastructure and training. And so a lot of companies, as they grow, HR, as you mentioned, is kind of like that back burner compliance piece where it might not be addressed until they start having significant issues from it. And so a lot of times when we go into companies, it's getting a lay of the land of what exactly do they have in place, and B, putting all of the HR infrastructure together to really help them be proactive about it. So everything from performance to dealing with employee behavior issues to contracts that would better protect them for the future. So a typical scenario that we end up seeing a lot is, let's say an organization has an employee that's underperforming, or maybe there's behavior issues or that sort of thing. Those performance issues go unaddressed because there's no formalized performance management process in place. Maybe the contract doesn't state any sort of severance terms. So then when they eventually get to the point where, hey, it's not working out, the employment relationship isn't working out, and they want to let this person go, the employer ends up paying a lot of money to end this person's employment because there were no terms of termination in their contract. So it ends up going to a common law, which is typically higher than employment standards. Or in other cases, they could get into a situation where there's wrongful dismissal and that sort of thing. So we help protect them, when it comes to things like this and make sure that we're following the right processes.
Okay. It sounds like kind of what you said there as well was a lot of kind of lack of HR infrastructure and training. If I think of, my past as well, I've owned and operated small businesses, and probably, didn't run the best HR, infrastructure myself. So what I probably think of is like, are there kind of, certain kind of solutions that are common things that you kind of implement right away that might be a good tip, for our audience from an HR infrastructure or training standpoint?
Yeah. So just make sure your bases are covered as far as the compliance aspect of it. So things like employment contracts being put in place, even if you don't have existing ones, those new ones can be put in place with consideration. Some basic things like proper employee onboarding, processes for when it comes to recruiting, training for new hires, that sort of thing, so that when someone enters your organization, they're starting off on the right foot. And all of the legal compliance things are taken care of. So things like bullying and harassment training. You can also do training for managers on interview skills, types of questions that they can ask versus types of questions that they shouldn't be asking. So let's say, for example, if they're asking things around human rights, like protected grounds, we can train managers on what is appropriate and what's not appropriate, and what types of questions would kind of get them in a bit of hot water, as well as things to spot during an interview and coach them on that side of things.
Okay, wow, you mentioned quite a bit right there. Maybe we can kind of dissect a couple of those. So one thing you mentioned, which is I think probably a hot topic over the last several years in your industry, which correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned bullying and harassment. I believe you said a specific policy. I think with the cyberbullying now and so forth, do you see more and more companies kind of diving into that sector and adding that within their HR?
Yeah, it's something that we're seeing more and more commonplace nowadays. And I think that it's not so much to do with it happening more, but there's more awareness around it, both from the employee side as well as the organizations. And the impact that it can have on performance, on employee health and motivation. People are more cognizant of it nowadays. So employers are definitely taking a bit more of a proactive approach to it, conducting seminars in the workplace, doing bullying and harassment training, which in Canada and in BC specifically. Is a requirement that employers are supposed to be conducting that training and have policies around it. So those policies include things like what the definition is of bullying and harassment. It can include examples of it, as well as investigation process and procedures. So what employees can expect if they do file an internal claim, as well as non-retaliation policies. So as an employer, if someone is experiencing something like this, A, we want to be proactive about stamping it out, but B, we want to be able to conduct the investigation and resolve the issue before it goes to a human rights claim, because that's when it starts costing you a lot in terms of legal fees and money.
It sounds like a lot of the things you're talking about are things that can be negated by a company if they have proper compliance put in place. So it sounds like maybe, an early investment into HR within your organization, it might be seen as a cost to you at that point, like as in, do I really need it? But I guess it's almost like insurance, right? You can almost by putting HR in place as an insurance protection in case something like that were to happen. Do you have any maybe examples you can share with our audience, just in cases gone bad, or things that you maybe helped work on, or again, obviously, I wouldn't expect any you to violate any type of confidentiality agreements or anything like that. And obviously, that's very important in HR. But speaking in general, that would be probably really helpful for the audience to hear.
Yeah. So there are a few examples, and I'll try and be a bit more general about the specifics. But we've had a couple clients that have had both bullying and sexual harassment claims. In both cases, there weren't any policies or training done around the type of behavior that's acceptable versus not. I think in at least two of the cases, we could have prevented it from happening by just making better awareness for staff about appropriate versus inappropriate behavior through training. By having the proper policies in place, it shows that the employer is taking a proactive step to preventing that from happening in the workplace. But also, in the event that it does happen, at least we're taking the right steps, going down the right path of investigating it and dealing with the issues at hand, so that it's not just left to be a toxic work environment for the employee. So we've had a couple of cases that have gone to human rights with our clients, but because we've stepped in and we've done the investigation, we've done our due diligence, we've put the policies in place, we've implemented the recommendations, they're in a much better position now if it does go, in front of the Human Rights Tribunal.
Hey, you've mentioned investigation quite a bit there. Can you maybe, again, without divulging as much information as you can you kind of explain a little bit more? What does it actually mean when you're conducting an investigation into a harassment case or and so forth? What does that look like from an exposure standpoint, even for that business?
Mm-hmm. So that's a great question. When conducting an investigation, the key thing that employees need to keep in mind is that it needs to be objective and impartial, right? So a lot of times, even internal HR practitioners will choose to engage the services of a third-party company to come in and do the investigation, because now there's no influence on them. So let's say it's involving a partner of the company or a manager. If you're having a third party come in, it's seen as much more objective. So process looks like we would come in, speak to the employee that is filing the claim, get a good understanding of what the situation was, all of their statements. We document everything. We then speak to the party that was alleged to have conducted the behavior, get their side of the story, again documenting anything, any evidence or witnesses that were present, maintaining confidentiality, reiterating to all parties involved that the case needs to be confidential in nature, and that there's a non-retaliation policy in place. Now, if the employer doesn't have bullying harassment policies in place, we would then put those in, because it's something that should be in place, and it would be part of our recommendation. Once the investigation has been completed and we've made a determination, we then update both parties, and we let them know, okay, these are our recommendations and next steps that are involved.
Wow, that obviously sounds like quite the process, and definitely intertwined with both the employee as well as the organization at that point. It sounds like from a very strategic level as well, that your firm definitely gets involved with an organization. I'm assuming then at the ownership level, depending on the size or the C-suite. And what types of maybe people within a company do you normally engage with? Is that just the leadership, or are you on a daily basis with other employees from that company? Can you maybe elaborate on kind of how you operate as TPD, working with the client? How does that look?
Yeah, So our primary contact in terms of anything that is at a strategic level would be the C-suite, so either the CEO or the COO. And that's because a lot of the policies and practices that we're implementing need to match up with where the company is going, what their business strategy is. So, for example, if the company has a certain financial goal where they're going to double in size over the next 5 years, and they're going to increase the number of employees that they have, well, then we start looking at, okay, what does your current org chart look like? What staff do you need in place in order to meet this expansion? What is your brand when you're going to be advertising for these roles? And what is the employee proposition to attract the right talent? Do you have a recruiting strategy in place? Are there strategies to capture tacit knowledge for employees that might be exiting the organization, as well as sort of a career path for employees to move up as the company grows, right? So all of those would be starting conversations at an executive level and then working our way down through the HR strategy to see how that's really impacting the organization and how they're going to be implemented. So that's from a strategic side of things. At the mid-level, we work directly with managers when we're doing things like recruiting, when we're doing performance management programs, because we want to make sure that what we're designing and putting in place works for them, as well as any sort of training that we're providing to managers. And on a day-to-day, of course, we have good engagement with employees, because to be an effective HR practitioner, people in the organization need to trust you. And they need to have built a relationship with you. So I guess what makes this a little bit different than a lot of consultants is TPD has ongoing partnerships with organizations where a member of our team will be in their office, say 1 to 3 days a week on an ongoing basis. So we understand their business, we build relationships with the staff, and we're seen as the internal HR person in that organization, or as part of the larger HR team. And that helps in terms of communication and basically every aspect of what we're rolling out.
It sounds like TPD really provides that flexibility for an organization to kind of plug their HR gaps or holes with, a TPD HR expert like yourself. It sounds like on a whole slew of operations that are ranging from, you mentioned employer branding, which I know is really hot, especially in, markets where, it's a talent market, I guess you call it, right? Where it's, tough recruiting, or, I guess that the tech sector is, like always comes to mind when I think of that, or, even trying to find the next top sales rep or something like that, right? You're always trying to attract those best people. It sounds like that's always almost like an ongoing, hurdle for many companies, is how do I attract and then keep them, right? From a talent perspective. So it sounds like TPD really has that entire process down. And I guess is that resource or that expertise that companies can really kind of look to. Perfect, man. Well, I know we're kind of coming up here on time. So I definitely appreciate, everything that you've shared so far with the audience. Would love to maybe do a follow-up interview with you in a month or so, and kind of see where you're at and how things have progressed on your current project. But if someone wanted to get in touch with you, or get in touch with TPD, how would they actually go about doing that?
Yeah, they can go to tpd.com and contact us that way, or reach out to me via LinkedIn as well.
Okay, awesome. I'll make sure that when we get this released out, we'll include both those links there for you guys. And I just want to say thank you very much. And on behalf of the audience, I know we got some great info here today on Business Innovators Radio. And just want to say thank you very much, Inthran.
Oh, thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.